Welcome everybody to the Brant Heritage Committee meeting for March 3rd, 2022. I've taken attendance and I would like to proceed with the nomination of chair and vice chair. Do I have any before I begin, I would like to recognize that because this meeting is being held virtually, there's no mechanism for a secret ballot. So if there's a tie vote, then we will, tie votes will be held by the raising of the hands in open session. And if there's a tie selection, it will be done by lot. Do I have any nominations for the position of chair?
I'll nominate John.
Do you nominate?
I would decline at this point. I would like to nominate Steve Howes.
Okay.
Thanks, though, Drew. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Councillor Howes, do you accept the nomination?
Yes. Okay.
Is there any more nominations for the position of chair? No, can I have someone close nominations? Would anybody like to move to close the nominations?
Oh,
okay. Mike, whatever.
And a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Drew. And do I have any nominations for the position of vice chair?
No.
Councillor Howes.
I'm wondering if Councillor McAlpine would be comfortable with the vice chair position.
Councillor McAlpine.
I would like to I'd like to decline and nominate Marianne Rose.
Marianne, do you accept the nomination? You do? You're mute.
You're on mute.
Nod your head. Sorry.
Thank you. I will.
Thank you. And is there any more nominations for the position of vice chair? Okay, can I have someone move to close nominations? Mayor Bailey and Councillor Howes. Okay, Councillor Howes, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Nancy, and thank you, everyone, and welcome to our first meeting of the Brant Heritage Advisory Committee for 2022. It's been a long time, and it's wonderful to see everybody here. This is a Heritage Advisory Committee that advises Council on heritage matters. We have a roster of 5 members of who are appointed from the community, as well as 2. So I'm missing one, aren't I? Nancy, it's 6, right? 6 community members.
Yes,
6 community members and 2 members of council, and the mayor is ex officio. And so based on those numbers, we do have quorum today. So we're happy to proceed. We have a lot to cover in today's agenda. We have visitors, we have lots of staff who are putting their time into today. So we'll try and move efficiently through this agenda. Before we approve the agenda, I will note that I have a couple of items to bring in under other business. Does anyone else have anything to add to the agenda?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple of items under new business.
Okay, so Mike and I will address our points at the appropriate time. Do we have someone to move the approval of the agenda? Don't be shy.
I can move it, Mike.
Okay. All right, thanks, Mike. I'll say seconded by Joan. Great, thanks everyone. Do we have anyone who wishes to declare a pecuniary interest now or later? Mayor Bailey?
I do. Okay. On 5.1.
Okay, so we will be moving into that shortly. And at that time, we will understand that you will step away. And then we can, Nancy, do we have a mechanism to let the mayor know when he can come back?
Yes, we do.
Great. Thank you. So moving right along into delegations, petitions, and presentations. I see we're going to start with item 5.1, which is related to Beverly Street. So I understand. So David has excused himself. Adam, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And in your words, I know you have a long agenda, so I will try to efficiently move through this presentation. So thank you for having me this afternoon. I'm just going to share my screen, which is a copy of the presentation you were provided in your package. Can everyone see that presentation?
Yep.
Excellent, thank you. So again, thanks for having me this afternoon. I'm here to speak about the redevelopment of 2 Beverly Street West in St. George. So I just want to provide an initial, initial perspective on the background of the current process. So the county purchased the property in July 2021 and assumed ownership in late October 2021. Following that, a report was presented to the county's Operation and Administrations Committee in December 2021 that outlined a public consultation framework. The initial reason and intention of council purchasing this property was to see the removal of the current structure and the redevelopment of the property to expand the green space along the intersection to sort of soften it, and to expand and incorporate the parking lot, municipal parking lot number 8 to the south. So through that process at committee, Councillor McAlpine raised an important alternative solution or an alternative option, which was the restoration of the original portion of the building, which was a Supertest building constructed in the 1930s, but I'll get to that later. So following that, obviously January 2022 didn't go swimmingly, and the public consultation was initiated in early February 4th. We decided on a 30-day period. That's the typical sort of consultation period for most municipal processes. And it currently runs until this Sunday, March the 6th. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of historical context on the site, obviously being the Heritage Committee. So according to some research done by the South Dumfries Historical Society, Councillor McAlpine's done some, and I've done some, the property started operating in about 1834 as a wagon works. It eventually became the Snowball Wagon Works, Wagon Company, excuse me, and the Jackson Wagon Works. So from my cursor here, you can see this is sort of the rough outline of the site we're referring to right now. In early 1930s, the property was acquired by the Department of Public Highways to construct Highway 5 through the village of St. George, obviously being a large parcel of land. And obviously it was interesting to go through this process, as you can see the sort of extension of that odd hook shape of Beverly Street as it meets High Street again, that would have been done at the time that Highway 5 was completed. So to provide a little bit further historical context, the remnant parcel to the south that I just identified, it was sold to the Supertest Petroleum Company in the mid-1930s, who built this gas station here. It operated as a gas station until about the mid-1970s, at which time the gas station use was removed, and it became Jack Kay's Garage. And also at that time, the larger cinder block garage was constructed about the same time in the mid-1970s based on some building records we have. And then eventually it became Truck Tech Performance Limited from the company by which the county purchased the property in 2021. So, you know, obviously I think there's quite a bit of historical context just from this photo itself. You see the lunch counter here, which is on the eastern portion of the property. You see the public washrooms that would have been a hallmark of any gas station around that period. And obviously it was a meeting place for a lot of people in St. George. So just to provide some context to the committee as to what it currently looks like, this was taken about mid-February. You can see here on the western boundary, here's the existing cinder block garage, and then sort of framed out here is the original portion of the Supertest building that you can see here. You know, we obviously see a lot of similarities. There's still this, you know, bathroom doors are still present on the exterior. This portion here has been sort of framed off here, which was the office for the automotive use. And then obviously the removal of the sign and some additional construction here with new windows and vinyl siding. So these pictures, and I'll provide a little bit of context to them. So this is a look into the interior as it exists today. So the first picture on your left, if your back is to the office, which is this portion here, is along the eastern edge of the original portion of the building. Judging by the wood paneling and the fixtures, probably constructed in the 1970s when it converted to an automotive use. The picture here on the right is if your back is to the garage addition, facing east towards this area here, which is an area sort of between the corridor to the garage and the office. This wall here is on the main floor, sort of facing north, and is basically the extension of this wall in the corridor here. This photo on the right here is upstairs near sort of the western edge of the building, and is, you know, probably the most extreme amount of damage that there is present in the building, but certainly showing some significant signs of wear. The photo on the left here is upstairs. It's with your back to the eastern portion of the original building facing west. The staircase here is here. Interestingly enough, this is a former bathroom, as it was actually a habitable space back when the garage station operated. So you can see a toilet flange here, and there's a drain for a sink. And finally, here on the right, this is the main entrance on the western edge of the building, with your back to the garage addition and facing northeast out towards the main intersection. So just to provide a little bit of an overview of the framework of the public consultation. So as I indicated earlier, the property was purchased by council, mainly with the intent to demolish the existing building, expand the current municipal parking lot, green space, and generally beautify one of the main corners, the main intersection in St. George. We put forward a consultation framework in December 2021, because we wanted to identify the public's desired use for the future redevelopment of that site. And at the same time, we incorporated the Brant Heritage Committee's role, commenting on, typically we wanted to clarify the role because, I think, as I understand it, in most cases, once a demolition permit's received, that triggers the commenting of the Heritage Committee. And we wanted to sort of flip that back over to ensure the Heritage Committee had an opportunity to comment during the public consultation process, as opposed to the end process after council had made a decision. And I will note that the original framework did see a public consultation where if no concerns were raised with the proposed demolition, then a concept plan would be brought back for council's consideration. Obviously, through this process, we've seen that there was quite a bit of interest in restoring a portion of the existing building. So the next stage will be to summarize the public consultation and make a recommendation on the redevelopment, which, once that's approved, a more detailed design will be provided to council for its consideration. So again, at that time, as I just explained, the two prominent options emerged, parking and the retention and restoration of the Supertest portion. But during this process too, we also wanted to encourage the public to provide any other alternatives they saw for how the redevelopment would occur. And they've forwarded a lot of design features they'd like to see. The use of the property as a farmer's market, benches, potentially a town clock, a lot of things that really will drive a lot of ideas into how we ultimately develop this parcel. So I just want to provide, these are the overview drawings that were provided on the Engage Brant site. They are, again, they are by no means the final concept drawing that is owed to council for its consideration at the end of all this. They were merely visual representations to show, what it ultimately could look like. So this one here is the sort of the original intention, showing enhanced green space along the intersection, a sidewalk connection that doesn't currently exist down towards Snowball Park, some enhanced parking, and ultimately green space. And then this is the sort of restored Supertest portion shown here in black outline with the garage addition, just to show some scale of what this all looks like, hatched here, shown to be removed. So just summarize quickly. As of the construction of this presentation, we had 48 unique contributions and comments, and that was within the first 20 days. I double checked before, we have about 50 now, which honestly is quite good for a public consultation. I'm really heartened to see that there was a lot of interest in this. And I think the majority of them were actually received in the first 7 to 10 days. So it sort of petered out after a while, but so again, the commenting period will run from February 4th to March 6th. Staff report summarizing the public consultation and recommended alternatives is to be presented at the March 15th meeting of the Administration and Operations Committee. And once council has determined the future use, staff will present a detailed concept plan for council's further consideration. So I'll comment, and you're probably wondering why I'm here. So realistically, I'm here to receive any comments, formal, informal, that you may have on this proposal, and any comments, concerns. Any formal recommendations I want to note, will be received by council at the same time as the staff reports presented, as this committee now reports to the Administration and Operations Committee. So I think this is a good opportunity to determine what the Heritage Committee's perspective is on this. So anyways, that completes my presentation. I will stop sharing my screen figure out where it is, and here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Adam. That was a great presentation. I'm glad that everybody had the chance to peruse it in detail in advance. I have a couple questions, but before I get there, I'll open the floor to the rest of the committee. Who's got some questions or comments that they would like to aim in Adam's direction? All right, seeing none. And I should have mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, my preference as the chair is to raise your hand in a traditional format, just like Councillor McAlpine just did, rather than using the raise hand button through the Zoom process. So John, you have a question?
Okay. I don't know if it's so much as a question, but it's part of the process today. So normally when we consult, okay, with the Heritage Committee, there's a process, okay? And part of that process is an evaluation of the building and its existing and how it's designed, historical value, local development, contextual, things like that. So that would entail going as a site visit, okay, and then evaluating the different scores through that, okay? And I think given that this is a rare example of an early gas station development, okay, I think it would be worthwhile going through that process. Now, I'm not sure if this is the right point in the process here to discuss this, or whether this needs to be brought up at a later point in the meeting, but I just wanted to say that at this point, because it's not on the agenda later, I don't think.
Okay. Thanks, John. We'll come back to that in a minute. I'm going to see if there's any questions first from any other members of the committee. I see that Mayor Bailey has returned. Welcome. And okay, so seeing no other questions, I had a specific question for Adam, specific to your presentation. You showed two scenarios, kind of with retaining the building and without. And forgiving my poor eyesight perhaps, but can you tell us the difference in parking spot numbers in those, and recognizing those are not final designs, but,
yeah.
Is there a difference?
To you, Mr. Chair. Certainly there will be a difference in the number of parking spots available between both options. Again, I've seen a proposal presented by Councillor McAlpine, sort of reconfiguring it, which is a great design. And that's something we hadn't really gotten to the point of detailed design for say a potential just solely parking situation. We hadn't gone through that process to determine the exact number of spots we'd ultimately develop out of either option. Just we didn't want to make this a consideration about more or less parking, but I think the retention of a building on a portion that could be parking would reduce the number of parking, but ultimately it's a smaller building. It wouldn't be a huge footprint, so it's not to say that we would be losing significant amounts of parking, but it certainly would detract from the overall numbers we could put on that site.
Okay, thank you. And seeing no other questions, I'm going to circle back to Councillor McAlpine's point. And I tend to agree, Councillor McAlpine, that similar to the process that we used for evaluating the Cedar House building in Paris, was that 2 years ago? Almost 2 years ago. If we can achieve this in a timely fashion, it would make sense for us to conduct a heritage evaluation of that building. And I'm going to suggest that John, let's start with you making that as a motion. We'll see if you get a seconder, and then we can discuss it a little bit. Is that a question, Joan,
Okay.
or you? A question from Joan first.
Our involvement would normally be triggered by the demolition permit, would it not?
It would, but my understanding in this case, the staff has kind of reoriented things a little bit to give us the opportunity at this stage to perform that function. If it can be done in a timely fashion, we would need a certain number of available participants from the Heritage Advisory Committee to go to the building, stand there and go through, unlike how we did it for the Cedar House, we would actually go and conduct the evaluation in the building. And so I'm going to go back to suggesting that, John, if you make the motion and if we get a seconder, we can discuss it a little bit further and see how many people we would have available next week to try to accomplish this.
Okay, so I would motion that we form a subcommittee to perform a heritage evaluation of the property at 2 Beverly Street, St. George, with an on-site visit.
I'll second that.
So seconded by Drew. Comments and questions? I will initiate a question, and that is, and this is on the spot, but that's kind of the world we're living in. Could we assemble, it doesn't have to be a quorum, but a significant number of participants from this committee next week to go visit that site with staff to conduct this evaluation? I'm going to just start the ball rolling by asking if Wednesday, would we have some people available Wednesday to go and do that? Hands up.
Now, could I stop for just a second? Wednesday's a bad day for me, but okay. I'm also wondering, Dan, just because your experience and Drew's too, is there a day next week that you would be available?
I'm pretty much available any day, depending on time of day.
Yeah, same here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So time of day next week.
Time of day would be 3:30, 3:45, somewhere in there is when I can get there.
Okay.
Sure.
So end of the day. That would work well for me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that would open almost any date for me actually then. How about you, Drew?
I'm pretty good with that. I don't have much of a social life anymore, so yeah.
Yeah. And
okay, John,
the other
John,
members on the committee. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Sorry, John, if I could try and organize this a little bit.
Yeah.
If we were looking at Tuesday at 4 o'clock, could I see a show of hands of how many members would be able to attend on site to do the heritage evaluation. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mike and Marianne and Joan, are there days or times that would work better for you, or are your days generally bad?
Well, generally, it's been people from the local community that have done the assessments in the past. So, you know,
Okay.
It's probably good for Dan and Drew and John to sort of shepherd it through.
Okay, Amanda, Marianne, Joan.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably more meaningful from the community, and in terms of assessment, I'm happy to learn the process and walk through. Wednesday, I work nights. I could be available before 5:30.
Okay, I think we're now looking at Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Although Tuesday is our council meeting, Steve.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, and I'm chairing, so that might be a tight time frame for us.
Okay. I was kind of hoping that we could cover it in an hour on Tuesday, but perhaps not. And you said, John, that Wednesday's not good for you?
Wednesday would be okay. Yeah.
Wednesday would be okay. All right, so we're back
Because
to
my
Wednesday.
meetings earlier in the,
Okay, so we're back to Wednesday, 4 o'clock. Amanda, Joan, interest, availability?
it'd be a really good learning experience, I think, for anybody who could make it.
I can come Wednesday, not Tuesday.
Okay, and Amanda?
I think I can do Wednesday as well. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, that's great.
If it's at 4 o'clock, I can do it.
Great.
I think.
Thank you all. We will plan for that to happen Wednesday at 4 o'clock, and we'll ask the clerk to send out an invitation to meet on site. Joan?
Just technicality. So we had the motion for the subcommittee, but did we vote?
No, I thought we would kind of get through the discussion.
Okay,
first
all
and
right,
do
okay.
a final vote. So we did have a motion. We had a seconder. We had some questions and discussion. Any other last words on that one? Great. All in favor?
Yeah.
All right, that's carried. Thank you very much. We will move on to, we have two delegations. First, we will welcome Councillor John McAlpine. The floor is yours.
Well, I think that for just the sake of brevity, I won't.
John, hold on just 1 second. I saw the appearance of Nancy, which means I have broken a rule somewhere along the line. Nancy, go ahead.
Sorry, no, that's okay. It's just we can receive Adam's presentation now or later, but in the end, we'll need to receive it as information at least.
Thank you for reminding me. And yeah, could we have a motion to receive Adam's presentation, please? We'll tidy that up right now.
I'll move.
Thank you, Mike. Seconder is Dan. I don't think we have any further questions or concerns. All in favor? Thanks, and thank you, Nancy. Go ahead, John. Thank you, Adam. Go ahead, John. Now the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, Nancy, if you could share the picture that I drew of a layout for the property. And this is just more general information, just for curiosity for people. And it just shows an alternative possibility for the property.
Sorry, I'll just be a moment.
Okay. It'd be quicker than if I tried to figure it out, so. Actually, that's the picture I drew of the building, which it would have looked like in the 40s. And I did the Supertest layout, number 3 there. Yeah. So just over the past month, I've had a chance to talk with different people and then going with Engage Brant comments and try to incorporate some of the ideas so that people could kind of visualize what it could possibly look like in a different view. So in this version here, I've reoriented the parking sort of at a right angle to what was on the other drawings. And by removing some of the extra green space in the parking area and then concentrating the green space on the far corner, that kind of allowed us, and this is all, very preliminary, much like the other one, but could have at least as many spaces as the other ones and slightly more possibly. Some of the comments we got was we have a lot of bicyclers coming through the village. So I've put some bicycle racks there on the left-hand corner. And by moving the picnic tables over to the far right, I've left an open space in the center there, just in front of the historic gas station, so that we'd be able to have, say, summer markets or farmers markets and different things like that people have suggested uses for it. We have a number of businesses in the downtown core that supply ice cream and sandwiches and different things. So this would probably be a nice place for people to come. One of the comments I got from Applefest and some of the other groups was that on the far right-hand side, the county wants to close off the access to that road, but they were concerned that it closed off the parking lot in a sense. So they wanted a walkway put through there so that when Applefest is occurring and other events, and even when people are parking there on a day-to-day basis, they would be able to get through there. Otherwise, they felt that people would just walk through on a natural basis. There was a couple interesting things consistently brought up was the putting public washrooms in the historic Supertest station. And we recently had the Garden Club come forward, and they've expressed an interest, if the station was preserved, in using it as sort of an interpretation center with where they could do interactive workshops, storage for the garden equipment, and possibly working it in, if it's conceptually possible for them to work with the county to develop sort of a butterfly garden, sort of naturalized area. So I just wanted to give an alternative view for people to consider and sort of give an idea of how the Supertest station could sort of fit in to the community in another use. And I think that's it for my short presentation. I don't want to go too much farther than that. So you can change the screen back, I guess.
Thank you, John. If that concludes your presentation, I'll ask members of the committee if they have any questions or comments for this delegation. Drew?
I think the idea of the public washroom centrally located in St. George is a fantastic idea. Like, well, we're doing it here in Paris too, and everyone loves it. So I'm sure it'll be absolutely a hit when it's freaking open. Yeah, is there anything in regards of like tourism St. George in downtown St. George? Like an office or some sort of that kind of idea?
There is a St. George Business Association.
Yeah.
John, more on that.
Yeah. So the Garden Club is suggesting that they would like to partner with a number of other community groups, if that's possible. And there has been some interest expressed by the Business Association of having some sort of like tourist kiosk in there, kind of tourism promotion. We had a chance to visit with Adrienne Carter, and she's from Ontario Tourism and represents Hamilton, Brantford, this whole region up to Waterloo. And yeah, she thought this would be a home run for tourism, and that it would, especially with the bikers that come here on a regular basis. Yeah, so there's something to consider.
Thanks, John. Next question is Dan Brown.
So do we know the actual square footage of the building that's staying? And if it's small enough, could we move it to a different position on the property to utilize for more parking space?
Yeah, and
Well,
go ahead,
Steve.
Go ahead.
Okay. The garage itself is already actually pretty close to the corner. So actually, when you do a historical valuation, that is actually part of it, is that it has remained on its actual location and everything. So I wouldn't see a need to move the station. You wouldn't gain any extra parking space, hardly. So the square footage is really supposed to be still to be determined. On the county reports that I went through planning, they say 1,200 square feet, but I don't think it's that big, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Thanks for the question, Dan, and thanks for the answers, John. Mike, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. Joan?
Is there a downtown St. George master plan comparable to, I'm sorry for my ignorance, but is there something for St. George comparable to the Paris?
No, that's not, and that's not a bad question at all. But to my understanding, there is not a downtown St. George master plan. John?
Yeah, that's planned to be done in about 2 years' time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I have a question for you. And John, I appreciate the visual. I've said before, I'm a visual thinker, so it is always nice to have an illustration. You may have a career ahead of you as a landscape architect. My question for you is as some know, I've been involved in municipal park projects, park design projects around Southwestern Ontario over the last 20 or 30 years. And I've seen projects where when heritage buildings can't be saved, or if it's cost prohibitive for heritage buildings to be saved, there's sometimes an opportunity within the green space to create a gazebo or a pavilion, an open air, not enclosed gazebo or pavilion, where like the roof lines are created to mimic the heritage building itself, and where there's opportunities for heritage storyboards to explain the ground of and the significance of the original site. If my question is, if we end up in a place where there's concerns about the cost prohibitive nature of this, and I've seen some comments to that effect on the Engage Brant process, would you consider that as a kind of a compromise between kind of option one and option two as it's currently presented?
Well, I think that's all the things that will have to be worked through. What's the best options and what the community wants. And right. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring this forward so that people would be aware of, because I wasn't even aware of this building really, and its history and its importance, I think, to the community and to the even the history of Ontario. When I talked to the director of Ontario Heritage. So yeah, we'll have to see, because there is a lot of variables that have to be gone through. At this point, all we're doing is trying to gauge the community interest, I guess, in the project.
Right.
So
okay, thank you. And it is indeed true that we sometimes don't recognize or appreciate the significance of buildings until we find out they're about to be torn down. We've seen that happen more than once. Drew, did you have a question?
Just a comment. It's just the fact that this is like a 1930s gas station, even in the US, where they're even more and more common than up here, 1930s gas stations are incredibly rare, like extremely, like hardly any have survived. So the fact that there's like one sitting in our backyard is kind of ridiculous. Like, yes, it's going to be muddled to the extent of all the businesses that have been into it, but the fact that its bones are still there is absolutely incredible, because most just did not make it this far. And well, it's actually going to be celebrating its 100th anniversary in a few short years. So
thanks, Drew. And I think we will all appreciate the opportunity to see the bones in person next week. If there are no further questions, Nancy, do we need a motion to receive this delegation's presentation?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right, who would like to move that we receive this presentation? Don't be shy. Mary Ann, seconded by Dan. I think we've had lots of comments and questions. All those in favor of receiving this presentation? Thank you. And I think that was unanimous, and we got Drew there. And next, we will move on to section 5.3, a delegation from John Peksuda. Am I saying that correctly, John? Welcome, John. The floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks to Councillor McAlpine for asking me to see if I was interested in attending this Zoom. And once that opened the door, I was asked if perhaps I wanted to be a delegation. So here I am, and I really apologize for my ignorance on all these topics. And you've covered many of my points already, and I will not expand on any of the ones that have been mentioned already, other than to put them into context a little bit. But I became aware of this literally about 24 hours ago. And I threw a few things together, talked to a friend of mine who shares similar thoughts about preservation and historical representation of our community and retention of it. And Nancy, I'm hoping that there might be an image there that you can screen share that my friend produced for me based on a photograph I took yesterday of the, oh, there we go. Okay, thank you very much, Nancy. Again, this was done rather hastily by my friend, just putting together a few ideas. And at that point, I'd like to just basically go into what I had prepared. And obviously, when I went onto the Engage Brant site, which is a wonderful place, by the way, it was pretty clear that the comments followed a pattern. Number one, provide more parking. Number two, use a portion of the space to be a community focal point. And that's basically it, 2 points. I don't see the need to necessarily push parking spaces all the way to the corner of Beverly and Main. And as already indicated, only a few parking spots would be lost if the building, this old building, was retained. Keeping buildings of this nature provide an anchor for the community. It also provides some prominence to the street corner, things that would have historical grounding and something that visitors would identify as a landmark, not just the parking lot. The structure, many believe it should revert to the Supertest gas station from the 1930s, and I think that's a fantastic idea. But as John shared some information with me, taking it back 100 years before that, when it was a wagon works on that exact same spot, and I don't know if any of the foundation or the footings of the buildings match, but that can be determined. But that was sort of what my friend did with the sketch, but using the existing structure of the Supertest station, he did some modifications. And I'll just point out the differences. On the very left side, what he labeled as the washrooms end of the building would more or less be the way it is today, with the facades and so on incorporated to match the rest of the structure. The major change would be in the central portion, where, because it has already undergone a lot of changes from the original, he decided to try to break it into something different. And basically what it is like a pavilion, the pavilion providing shade, sitting area, and also a connectivity through to the back of the parking lot toward the south. On the right-hand side would be more of the building that would be like a storefront. And that would be our community center. And that's where I'll just quickly, because this is repetitive, I apologize for that. Many other things would happen besides the washrooms on the left: tourist visitor information, displays or sales or samples of local produce of arts and crafts, small quantities, not 2 bushels of apples, but small bag of apples. And where do you get that? Well, out at the Howell Farm or Brewbakers, or and perhaps some honey from Hunter Road, or maybe some pottery from down the road, or something like that, kind of like a sampler of what else you can see in the heritage or in the crafts and the farm produce that is available in our area. It would provide shade or air conditioning in hot weather. It would provide a heated space or dry spot during inclement weather. The bicycle parking lot's been mentioned. Tables or benches for pedestrians, obviously. Perhaps weekly usage of a farmer's market could be something that could be done on a morning of a certain day through the summer and harvest months. Then seasonal usage, like St. George Apple Fest, St. George Garden Club's been mentioned, Christmas season, Remembrance Day, and kitty corner to the War Memorial or to the Remembrance Memorial is obvious. Someone's mentioned a village clock, again, a landmark feature, something that people can gravitate to. Perhaps at the right time of year, some planters with blossoming apple or pear trees could be brought in with some forklifts and put into attractive positioning. Those are some of the things that came to mind with what to do with the space, that relatively small space, but a very usable space and something that will become a bit of a landmark. One other question I had, and this is an engineering question, it has to do with that connectivity to Main Street. I foresee a better flow in the parking lot if we could retain that as an exit only out of the parking lot onto Main, and I'll stand down when someone provides obvious engineering requirements that I'm not aware of. But anyway, just to wrap up then, to be able to replace something like Jack Kay's garage, and when I moved to Harrisburg, Jack Kay was my neighbor here, and he ran that business. But to be able to replace that spot with something memorable and something attractive and historical at the same time, I think is an opportunity we shouldn't waste. And I submit this just as some information, and I'll be happy to work with John and his committee and other committees down the road. If you wish any input, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And I should have asked you to introduce yourself at the beginning, but I guess it's clear that you are a resident of St. George.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just mention quickly, I live in Harrisburg for 45 years. And thanks for asking. I forgot to say that.
Okay. And again, appreciate the visual, and it's I could kind of see in your visual what I was envisioning with kind of an open air gazebo with the roof peaks. So anyway, that's all very valuable. Any questions for our delegation? Seeing none, I will ask if someone would move to receive this presentation.
Okay.
And Marianne, seconded by Mike. Any last questions related to John's presentation? If not, all in favor? Great. Thank you for coming in and speaking to us, John.
Thank you very much, folks, and I'll withdraw at this point. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on. Item number 6 in our agenda is adoption of the minutes from the previous meetings. Do we have someone who would like to move that? Dan Brown, seconded by Amanda. Thank you. Any questions or comments related to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, that is unanimous of those who are left here. And moving on next, I will see the business, any business arising from the minutes. Seeing none. Next, item number 8, we will welcome Russell Press and Jennifer Boyer, who will be introducing our County of Brant staff and their roles related to this Heritage Advisory Committee. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it, and appreciate the opportunity to see everyone and address the committee. It's great to have everyone back and engaging in all things heritage in the county. And we were thrilled to be able to introduce some staff support for heritage in the county, both on the cultural built heritage side, as well on the planning and development side of things as well. So Jennifer is going to introduce and remind everyone about Brandon Kortlev, who isn't with us right now today. And then I will introduce Kayla. So Jennifer, if you want to go ahead.
Very much, Russ, and thanks everyone for having us today. I appreciate that. If you don't know me, I'm Jennifer Boyer. I'm Manager of Policy Planning at the County of Brant. I work under Pam Dusling, our General Manager of Development Services. Brandon can't be here today. He's on a well-earned vacation that was booked many months ago when we actually thought we'd be finished our official plan by now. So on his behalf, I'm here and I will be presenting item number 11. As Russ said, Brandon works for me in policy planning. He is our heritage guru, as you know. He does a lot under the planning wing. But as Russ said, we're working towards, and we are coordinating in great effort in terms of policy and planning, in terms of arts, culture, and heritage. So we're being a very good tag team. And as we sort through what this committee's terms of reference is, Brandon is also an expert, but we're super happy that Kayla has joined the county. She's wonderful. So I'll turn it over to Russ. Thank you very much. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Jennifer. Again, through you, Councillor Howes. My name is Russell Cross. I happened to miss that. Sorry. And I'm Director of Economic Development and Tourism. I'm very fortunate to have that role and be able to work with a great group and a great team. And we were able to, the end of last year, be able to add Kayla Cheechman to our team. And Kayla comes to us very accredited in the area of arts, culture, and heritage. She is our Arts, Culture, and Heritage Officer. And I'm going to ask Kayla to pop on the screen if that's all right, Mr. Chair. There's Kayla there, and you'll be introduced to Kayla in just a moment. I believe item number 9 is Kayla's topic to be discussing here in just a moment. I just wanted to share that when it comes to matters of arts, culture, and in particular for this committee, heritage significance, where it requires some research and some background study, as well as environmental scans for what goes on around us and what has been done in terms of best practices, in terms of heritage preservation and heritage outreach and layering of stories, heritage stories for the county and that sort of thing. That will be Kayla's role. That is where she will intersect most often with this committee, as well as providing support to Brandon when it comes to areas that are affected in the planning area. So if you have any questions for me or for Kayla, Councillor Howes, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to take those when you deem it most appropriate.
Sure. Thank you very much, Russ. And I'm thinking that after Kayla's presentation and after Jen's presentation later, I'm sure there will be appropriate questions specific then. Any questions right now? Right, none. Great. So we're going to move quickly on to number 9 and the introduction of our new Arts, Culture, and Heritage Officer, who will be our new best friend, and the Heritage Online Hub project that she wishes to discuss. We look forward to hearing about it and having a good discussion. Welcome, Kayla.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for welcoming me and for that great introduction. It's great to finally get together. I've heard lots of your names and lots about the Heritage Committee, so I'm really happy to be able to have this chance to get to meet you a little bit over the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to introduce one of our newest projects that I'm working on because I'd like to work closely with this group too to kind of help get some ideas for it. So we are building an Arts, Culture, and Heritage Hub right now, which is a new platform to celebrate, join together, and share all things arts, heritage, and culture for the community. So it's kind of like a virtual storytelling hub. So we're going to be launching this very soon. I've got quite a few articles written, and as I think of ideas, as we're meeting, as I'm talking to people in the community, people are really sharing new stories and ideas that we'll be able to feature on this hub. So we've come up with a name. It's going to be called The Heart of Brant. So it's kind of a mix of art and heritage together, and it really encapsulates this meaningful part of our community. So I just wanted to connect with all of you. So if you have any ideas that you want to have featured on this hub, I'm happy to hear them and work with you to do that and have you participate in the development of some of our articles and stories. Before we share, I just wanted to let you know a little bit about it. So we're going to be having a few different categories, including exploring our past, which will be a lot of this group will be able to share in that, our creative community, unique culture, so the things that really make us us, spotlight, so that can include heritage figures, it can include really interesting buildings that we want to kind of share a little bit more about, things happening in our community. So if we're having any events or anything like that, and you know any heritage groups that are sharing events, we can share it on there, and community stories that we can kind of do through interviews, through storytelling, and really encapsulate them there. So I just wanted to let everyone know this is going to be a platform that's similar to a blog, a little bit different. We'll be able to put some pictures in there, kind of under these categories. And I'll be sharing usually at least one a week. I want to be able to put on there. So I just want to encourage everyone to kind of start thinking about ideas that they may want to see on the platform. So building spotlights, maybe museum artifacts that they know of that are really interesting. We can share archives, historical figures, and pictures of kind of then and now. So it's a really great way for the community to connect with us through heritage. So if anyone has any ideas, feel free to reach out to me. We can set up a time to talk, or you can just email me and say, oh, I heard about this. Can we do a little more research on it? That would be a really great story to feature on the hub. And I think it will be a really great place for people to be able to learn a little bit more about the community and dig a little bit deeper about some of these amazing stories. So really looking forward to that. So if there's any questions about that, I'm happy to answer, and just a little introduction. Yeah.
Thank you, Kayla. That all sounds exciting, and it sounds like you've hit the ground running in your new position, and that's exactly what we had hoped to see. And certainly, I know that this group, there are members of this committee. I know Mike and Drew and Marianne and others in the past have been great about sharing stories and articles and of heritage interest, and we always appreciate when those are circulated. They're usually circulated through Nancy. So the direction you're going of having a hub where we can share these resources is a great idea. I would like to suggest that after this meeting, if you could send an email out to this group so that everybody has your appropriate contact information. So there's no question on the right way to reach you. That's just one little technicality. Initial questions for Kayla. We have a shy group today. Okay. I heard somebody. Where we get hands up?
No, it's fine.
Oh,
Drew, you're as passionate about heritage as anybody. What's on your mind? Let's hear it.
Not that I'm just think it's fantastic having like a heritage staff person in county. I think it's freaking absolutely deadly.
I agree 100%. And like I said, Kayla's going to be our new best friend, and we will absolutely take advantage of that. John, did you have a question or a comment?
it was more just a comment. Just welcome, Kayla. We had a chance to meet last fall, but I've been hearing nothing but positive information back about your work, and yeah, looking forward to working with you in the future. So
yeah. Well, with all of you, it's nice to have this opportunity to come together. So thank you.
Well, that's good. Kayla, one more question before we let you step back is obviously every member of this committee is going to be interested in the hub that you're describing. Am I correct in assuming that it will also be accessible by the public and all residents of the county of Brant, and we will, and I would hope and assume that all the members of this committee will take advantage of the opportunity to champion this to people they know who share interest and passion in heritage. We know, and members of council know, and people who are involved in our official plan, excuse me, have seen that keeping our small town charm and retaining the great heritage elements of our communities is a very, very big concern and a very big passion point for the people who live here, and not just the people who have lived here for generations, but the people that have just moved here too. They equally share a passion for these, and so we will look forward to continued growth in this direction. Marianne, question.
Welcome, Kayla. Sounds like wonderful, meaningful work that you're going to do, especially in regards to our cause here. Is there a target launch date?
It will be in the next few weeks. It's very close to being complete. So we're just waiting on a few copyrights for some imagery so we can have some really nice heritage images on the site as well. So it's kind of those last finishing touches. And then, like I said, we'll be able to keep adding to it as it develops, and yeah, get some feedback from the community, get some feedback from this group. to really make it a robust place where we can house all these stories and people can look them up and have those images with it. So I will send a message out when we do have it up and running. We'll do kind of a launch. So when we have that date, we'll let you know as well, but it's very close. I'll tell you that much. We're almost there. So it's exciting for sure.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Kayla. And safe to assume you're coordinating with the Paris Museum and Historical Society and other historical societies within the county?
Yeah, everyone will be involved on it, and a lot of the images are coming from those groups. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Nancy, do we need to receive this as anything, or does it just carry on?
No, you're good.
Okay, we will then carry on to item. Thank you, Kayla. Again, we will move on to item number 10. And this is an important one, not that any of the others aren't important, but this is equally important. We're going to be talking about updating our committee terms of reference. And if you've ever sat in this committee at any time in the past and kind of wondered to yourself, what is the purpose of this committee? Why are we here? What are we supposed to focus on? Those types of questions, we are going to nail down some answers. So we look forward and introduce Russell Press, who is giving us this presentation, or is that Kayla?
Oh, there you
go. It will be more me. Okay. A little bit of both of us. Yeah, so everyone's kind of had their hand in it.
Yep, all right, thank you.
So hello again. Yeah, so I think everyone should have received a copy of the new terms of reference, the draft copy. So we thought it would be a really good idea to have this kind of starting the group back up together. It was a really nice time to introduce the terms of reference. So I was able to kind of pull together some work that I've done with some other heritage committees. I was recently in the Waterloo region with their heritage committee, and they had a terms of reference as well, and also using kind of the Ontario provincial documents to kind of pull this together based off what we need for our community. And then we've had quite a bit of input on it as well to get it to this point. But now we want to have obviously your group's input as well. So I also shared in our meeting notes the Your Community, Your Heritage, Your Committee guide. And part of that really kind of outlines why it's important to have the terms of reference and kind of what should be included in that, just to kind of have that nice consistency and structure moving forward, or if people are joining the group, they have that as well. So I don't know if you, for time's sake, if we really want to go through the entire thing, it's kind of up to how we want to do it. But I was thinking what we'll do is if everyone has a chance to review it and take a look through, what we can do is I can collect comments over the next week and a half or so, and then I'll be able to bring those all together and we can have maybe a more in-depth discussion at April's committee meeting. But if there are any questions that are kind of out there right now, we can obviously address those as well. So it's kind of up to you for how you would like to go about it. If you want to kind of go back and have kind of questions provided to me, and then we can have a more fuller discussion next time, or if you want to kind of have some initial discussion.
In the interest of, thanks, Kayla. In the interest of time, I would like to see us tackle this a little bit today. And because I think we want to send a message to council and anyone else who's interested that we are moving forward ambitiously with our new Heritage Advisory Committee, or our resumed Heritage Advisory Committee, and with the terms of reference understood and everybody being on the same page. We will trust that everyone's had an opportunity to read this document. And at this point, I'll say, for those of us who have had a chance to read it and absorb it over the last few days, what questions or comments do we have for Kayla? Okay, recognizing that there's always the opportunity to send questions and comments to Kayla at any time, but seeing that we don't have questions, the one thing I will comment on is, Kayla, in my experience, in a few years being involved on this, both as a counselor and as a resident, there have been times where I believe that even within the public, there's some confusion over the difference between a heritage registry, a heritage designation, and a heritage conservation district. I think, and you know, hopefully we all understand it, but it wouldn't hurt for a quick little recap from you. And I'm wondering if, with your experience, do we have an opportunity to create a communication piece that goes out to the public through the, you know, our usual channels to better explain to people the definitions of those different terms? Because I think we've been working on the Heritage Registry for forever, it seems, and I trust that we're going to be wrapping that up soon. I think that's going to be a future agenda item. But I just wonder if you could speak to both the kind of the definitions and the opportunity for communication, and to help residents have a better understanding of the significance of those different terms.
So that's something that I have been working on too, because it can, like you say, be quite confusing, because there's a lot of like the inventory versus the registrar versus the designation as well. So I am trying to work on making clear sheets so that we can share that with the public as well. And the hub will be a great spot too, to kind of being able to tell people, say you have a heritage property, okay, what are your options for designation? If you are designated versus if you aren't, what that kind of brings with it, and the like great things that come along with that, just to have that community engagement side of it as well. So I am definitely working on that, and I'll be able to share that as it develops. So from what Brandon has told me, he is working on doing a report for the heritage inventory that has kind of been the project that you were discussing. And he will be able to present on that at the next meeting when he's here. So you'll get a nice chance to ask questions about that and see where everything is at for that. We do have quite a few buildings that are heritage designated as well. So I think that was kind of your question, the difference between those. So those are ones that will actually be on the Ontario list, those heritage designated buildings. So I believe we have 27 buildings and I think 3 trees as part of the natural heritage designation as well for the county. So that gives you kind of an idea, whereas the inventory will be more in the hundreds. It will have buildings that we've seen to have heritage features that need to be listed, but don't necessarily have those full designation. But I know you guys have kind of touched a little bit on the fact that you can designate when that demolition kind of is coming up. You can decide whether or not you want to designate or not. So that's what you'll be looking at next week as well. And if you do decide, then that goes on that designation list that is through Ontario. I think your other question was for the Heritage District. Is that the one that you were?
Yeah, the Conservation District.
Yeah, so that's more of an area. So it's a bigger area, not necessarily just an individual property that would be designated then. So those are kind of the differences, if that, yeah.
Yeah, that helps. And I think the Heritage Conservation District topic will come back around in a few minutes when we've got Jen in the hot seat. So thank you. Joan, question?
I became aware, it just wasn't, I hadn't seen it mentioned, but I also saw heritage conservation easement as an option. And that seems to not be part of the discussion, but I think it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Yeah.
Okay, so that's well noted by Kayla. And is that something that we can build into our terminology moving into the future?
I can even give you I have the definition right in front of me, a nice quick one. So for a heritage easement, it's an agreement with the registered, it's on the title of the heritage property. And an easement can be tailor-made to suit the unique heritage character of the resource it protects. So it kind of gives you that extra protection. It can have more preservation for the heritage character and fabric of the property and ensure kind of that stewardship long-term. So it's not just a designation. You can designate, say, inside, outside, heritage features a little bit more too. And it travels with the property as it sells as well. So that's a little bit description of an easement as well.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks for bringing that up, Joan. So that's another tool in our toolbox, we might say. Okay. So if there are no other questions, and again, recognizing that questions on the terms of reference can be sent to Kayla anytime, but I think as we again try to ambitiously move forward with a solid direction underfoot, if there's no other questions, no other comments, I think it would be a sign of good faith if we could have someone to move to approve the adoption of these terms of reference for our committee. And if someone moves it and seconds it, we'll have a last chance for some questions related to this before we vote on it. Do we have a mover in that direction? Jan Brown, thank you very much. Seconder?
Second.
Mike? Perfect, thank you. Any other questions or comments specific to the adopting the terms of reference for our advisory committee? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for sign of hands of who's in favor. I see unanimous of the members here, and that's great. We will move that forward accordingly. Next on our agenda is the new official plan. Welcome, Jen Boyer.
Very much, Chair House, and appreciate that. So thanks for hearing the presentation today. And like I said, I'm here on behalf of Brandon. And I am the manager of policy planning. So we are actually a team if you have not met any of the team members. So it's myself, it's Brandon Courtleave, it's Jessica Kitchen, who's also another policy planner, and Michelle Schafel, who's our environmental planner, and we are the official plan team. And we've been working over the last 2 years. So I'll be giving actually a quick presentation regarding heritage matters in the OP. You've probably seen some communications, especially over the past year, that's been sent out. Last spring, we had a mail out go out. And also in the fall, there was an email sent to the Heritage Committee, which just talked about the actual matters we're looking at for heritage. And that was back in the fall when we didn't know if we were going to meet. So just to keep you up to date. And as you know, Brandon has been working in the background on other heritage matters, and we'll talk a little bit about that, how the policy framework and then the implementation and then the actual processes are all slightly different. We've talked a lot today about process, but I'm looking at the high level policy in terms of updating our OP. And as you also just talked about with Kayla, with heritage conservation districts, the inventory and other tools that the Heritage Act, the provincial policy statement, and also the Planning Act outline for us. It sort of all melds together, but really what we're trying to do is look at this high level policy plan under the provincial policy statement to protect heritage and cultural significance in the County of Brant. And in terms of development and land use planning, what are we doing as planners as we move forward for the next 30 years for the official plan to protect our heritage and cultural resources? So I'll take it away. I've got about 6 slides, so I'll keep it short. Brandon's provided a very comprehensive staff report. He's an awesome writer, so it's very laid out in terms of the actual OP and some of the matters. We've asked for comments. You've asked, there's a lot on the agenda to comment on, but it's an ongoing process right now. We're still accepting comments on the draft. So I'll just take it away with a quick presentation. I'll just share my screen. Brandon's also my tech guy, so if anything goes wrong, he's sipping margaritas right now. So I'll do my very best, but pretty good with Zoom. So just give me 1 second here. All right, can you see my presentation?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So like I said, in terms of the OP, and there's also the attachments to the report, which I'll be referencing throughout the presentation, and I'll take it away. So I guess Chair House now, and Councillor McAlpine has heard this many times. We've had quite a few special meetings of council. Right before Christmas, we went again. We had 2 special meetings of council on December 2nd and December 9th. December 2nd was delegations, and then the 9th was actually additional information for the draft official plan. It was actually our 9th special meeting of council that we had done in pretty much almost a year. And as councillors know, that we've been trying to move forward with digestible pieces, but it is a very immense project and it's taken a lot of time. But I guess as I've mentioned, why are we creating this new official plan? It's really looking at our current OP, which is very out of date. We've got 2 versions of the growth plan to catch up to, and 2 versions of the provincial policy to catch up to. And we are creating a brand new OP, which means we are literally starting from scratch. We're taking the good bones, but as we move forward, we actually are creating a brand new plan. It's quite a stark change. We're revising land use designations, policy frameworks, and you've obviously heard a lot of the chatter going on about this housing affordability and housing supply from the provincial level. It's become a very large election issue, which I'll talk about shortly with the presentation and how that affects heritage matters. So where are we in the process? As I mentioned, Brandon had booked some vacation back in October thinking that we would be done by now, and we are not, unfortunately. We've had comments in. The draft official plan went to Council July 29th and August 10th, where Council endorsed in principle a draft to be sent to Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for their review. And what that does is trigger a 90-day one-window provincial agency review. It's now been 6 months, and we unfortunately have not had any comments sent back to us. So they're missing their legislative timelines at the moment. And July 1st is the conformity date with the growth plan. And with an election looming, it's unclear how this will be proceeding. So we are waiting, and fortunately and unfortunately, we are in a bit of a pause period, but we as staff, we're a very small team. We've done almost all of this work in-house, which is very rare for municipalities. The province is very impressed with us, but it's actually given us a time to reflect. It's given more consultation. I cannot tell you how many emails we get every week with people with questions about the OP. It's actually very impressive. The word's out. So that's where we're at. We still have time, and we are looking still for your feedback and guidance and expertise on the policy framework. So part of the what we presented in December is we have some fundamental assumptions about growth. And if you've heard any of the official plan presentations over the past year and a half, mostly the last year, in terms of our land needs, we actually have a surplus, if you can believe, of residential lands in Paris and St. George in terms of the growth areas. We have 15 years of residential units supply in the pipeline. So if the province wants to build homes, we have already a large supply in the pipeline. However, we have a shortfall of employment lands, especially prestige employment lands that are serviced. And those are the land need calculations that we looked at. We also are having additional intensification, slightly higher density, mostly to meet different needs in terms of not just building single detached homes. And we have very much an aging population. So we need to build homes for aging seniors, long-term care. Also, we have an extremely low rental stock in the county. It's almost, as Chair House knows, it's minuscule. And those are some of the issues that we're trying to address, especially also in terms of affordability, meaning in terms of lower income, affordable units, but also, as we've talked about, attainable homes in terms of price point, especially for those getting into the housing market, which is near impossible at this time. So those are the fundamental assumptions, but loud and clear from the public, we have heard slow and managed growth. We've heard, please keep our small town charm. Please also, in terms of preservation of agricultural lands, our natural heritage in terms of environmental protection, and also in terms of just keeping the county in terms of really, it's a rural municipality. We'd like to see it that way. And we also are very proud of our culture, our heritage, and also that kind of charm. And we've heard those messages over and over again from the public. They are, as we call, the silent majority. We hear a lot from the development industry, but I would like to reiterate those messages today for you. So So in terms of heritage, Kayla had just previously with Chair House's question, in terms of the tools, the current official plan actually lays out heritage conservation districts. It lays out tools for heritage based on the current framework under the Heritage Act. Also in terms of land use planning and what happens when, like say the process today about, you know, if there's a demolition, what is triggered and things like that. A lot of those are process. But in terms of other coordinated efforts, Kayla had mentioned the arts, culture, heritage strategy, how we are coordinating, but also what goes into actual protection of heritage in terms of land use planning. So those are some of the pieces that we've laid out for you. We've sent that information, and if you've had a chance to read our Simply Grand Plan, even though you can't see it because of the green screen here, but the Simply Grand Plan, it's section 6.7 of the document. It actually lays out a lot of the new framework of implementation. The one issue with our current OP is the tools were there, but much of its implementation was not applied. So the tool of the heritage conservation districts for say Paris, St. George, even Burford, other areas, the tool is there, but it's the actual application of doing that. And is there appetite for that? Is that something that, you know, the community and council, the business areas want? So the tool is there and we're still going to move that forward. The key is with any policy document, no matter what, any strategic plan is you don't want it to sit on the shelf. The actual official plan is a provincially approved council adopted document that has a legal teeth. So it's a policy framework with legal implementation to it. So in terms of these tools, there's a lot of things that Brandon has laid out. They are coordination efforts also with, as Russ and Kayla mentioned, for the county as well. Everything with different tools that we're trying to protect heritage, whether it be a district, because right now we don't have a lot of teeth, I would say, in terms of heritage matters. So, and the problem is that the provincial framework is sort of moving away from that protection mechanism. So at this point, I'll have to mention, as Councillor House and Councillor McAlpine know, is that the province has put out this Housing Affordability Task Force report, which was put out on February 12th, I believe, and it lays out a framework to add the housing supply in the province. And I can talk about that in a little bit, but there are recommendations in there to water down the Heritage Act, and also to compensate developers if they are, you know, if they have a heritage building and it's going to take away the ability to build residential units. If you have not had a chance to look at that report, we can send it. And the county is in the process of writing a letter that Mayor Bailey and council is going to send to the province with a lot of displeasure with the recommendations in that report. So, so those are some of the things, but we are moving ahead as if we are still protecting culture and heritage in the county, because it is extremely important to us in the county. So. Let's see, next screen. Oops. So in your package today, Brandon has provided some mapping. So these are some maps that are included, and he'd like you to take a look at them. These are some examples of areas of cultural heritage value and interest that go beyond what we currently have right now. These types of mapping will form like an annex and potential overlay in our official plan. It shows areas where there's clusters of heritage resources that could apply to an extra sort of cultural heritage. So it would form the basis of potentially doing a heritage conservation district. Whether or not this gets put into the official plan, it's subject to review. but these are actually areas that have been identified that are going beyond, because we don't have this actually in our official plan at the moment. So it's in your package. If you wouldn't mind taking a look at that, it would be much appreciated. So. The last slide, and I do apologize, Brandon was in a rush. This is incorrect slide, and I do apologize. And actually the date is wrong now, because we are not moving forward with a final official plan in April, because we have not unfortunately received comments from the province. That was our original date. So it's subject to the provincial review. So that concludes my presentation, and I am willing to take any questions, and hopefully I can answer them. But just before I finish up, I would like to just say a word in terms of section 6.7 contains a lot of Indigenous cultural heritage as well. There's archaeology, and there's also in terms of Indigenous cultural heritage. And even though it's lumped all together, we are making a distinction between Indigenous cultural heritage and built heritage in terms of European sort of colonial built heritage. We've been asked to sort of separate them because it's a bit of a different thing. And also Six Nations of the Grand River and Mississauga's First Nation of the Credit have asked for a cultural landscape plan, so a cultural heritage Indigenous plan that we have to finish with our archaeological management plan. So even though it falls all under heritage, it's slightly a different purvey to that, but right now it's all in section 6.7 of the draft OP. So I just wanted to make that note. So I will turn it over to Chair House, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's a lot of information, even the bite-sized digestible stuff that staff prepares for us. It's a lot of information. The short summary, if I may be so bold, is from my interpretation is our staff have really listened to the heartfelt comments of the people that live in our communities. They have really listened, and they have built the needs of our community into this official plan. And they've done a great job. They have done a fabulous job. And Jen and the team, they know how highly we regard what they've done. It's frankly embarrassing that they've done such a great job and the province has not done their part of responding with basically giving us the rubber stamp to make this our official plan. And that's awkward. It's embarrassing. And it's not a reflection of our staff. And it's frustrating. That said, are there questions or Jen specific to the official plan heritage elements as we've heard them? Is there anyone on this committee who would appreciate having Jen email out the entire official plan summary? No. Okay. So in that we don't have any questions, and in that we don't have anyone who wants some light bedtime reading, I will then point out that section 11.1 of our agenda is a resolution, a recommendation. It's long, it's written out, but the last paragraph says, therefore be it resolved that RPT 22-62 be received as information and related comments on the draft policies of the new official plan be referred to staff for their consideration in the preparation of the final draft of a Simply Grand plan. And I need a motion to put this forward. John McAlpine, seconded by Joan. Are there any last questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Sure.
Thank you. Nice to have that put to bed. It's a necessary step in the process of our official plan. And it's unfortunate that COVID caused us some delays in being able to engage with the Heritage Committee sooner, but I'm glad we got to do it now. And as always, and as I said before about Kayla, if anyone has questions about heritage as it relates to the official plan, send Jen an email, and she will be great about responding to you. But I am coming out of this feeling very good that our staff really understand how important we all find heritage in our communities and the preservation of heritage in our communities. So we will at a future date, we will revisit those maps of culturally significant areas and reopen the conversation about whether places like downtown Paris should be a heritage conservation district. So we will come back to that at a future date. Thank you for coming in, Jen.
All right. Thank you, Chairhouse. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks. We will see you later. So moving on to item number 12, communications. And it was with significant emotion that I read of the resignation letters from Steve Schmidt, Lana Job, Steve Pinkett, and Ruth Leffler. These people contributed significantly to this advisory committee for many, many years, and I am sorry to see them go. They, some of them expressed what their reasons are, some of them didn't, and they didn't have to. It's totally a personal choice, and we are sorry to see them go. I would like to suggest that our Heritage Advisory Committee send thank you letters to each of them individually. And I would also, Mayor Bailey had to leave, but through Nancy, I think it would be appropriate if we asked the mayor to also create, there's a County of Brant scroll that we do at times of significance and to show appreciation for people, and you know, we do it when police officers retire and things like that, and so with everyone's hopeful agreement and blessing, I'd like to ask that we do both a letter from the Heritage Advisory Committee and a scroll from the mayor to be delivered to each of these people. Do I have any objections to that? No, everybody's on board with that. Okay. Thank you. Nancy, do you need anything else from us? It doesn't have to be a motion or votes or anything like that, does it?
Sorry, yes, if I can get someone to move that recommendation, that would be wonderful.
Sure.
I'll move it.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Mike. Mike's moving it and Drew is seconding it. And I appreciate that, folks. And it's the very least we can do. And if anybody sees any of those former members, please pass along to us that we are sad to see them go, but respect their decisions. And in the meantime, we appreciate everyone who is still with us, and as we move forward with what I believe will be a ambitious Heritage Advisory Committee. We'll quickly move on to other business. Mike, you had a couple items for us?
Yeah, one item, I'm sort of curious, was any recognition given to Carol Moore for the super job she did on the inventory, the War of 1812? I just wondered whether we'd done anything on her behalf.
I believe, now Nancy will have to fact check me on this. I believe that when Carol retired, I believe we sent some kind of communication from our advisory committee to Carol, did we?
We did not from the advisory committee, no.
Okay, and that's, I guess that's one of those things that happened while we were in hiatus.
Okay.
Correct, Nancy?
Yes.
Okay, so then it would be appropriate for us to have a similar motion for a similar communication from this advisory committee to Carol, and basically tied into our first resumed advisory committee, to belatedly thank Carol for all of her efforts related to this committee. Is that kind of the direction you were going in, Mike?
Yep, yep.
Right. I think Mike just made a motion on that. Seconder is Dan Brown. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Next on your list, Mike.
Okay, it's a proposal. I would like to suggest that, or propose rather, that the Mount Pleasant Nature Park be renamed the Vic Garn Memorial Park. Vic and I were instrumental in getting that park sort of restored, mostly Vic. And anyway, he just recently died, and all the work he put into it saved that park. So that would be a proposal on my behalf.
Let's turn that into a motion by Mike, seconded by anyone? Marianne Rose, thank you. Further discussion. I think Mike's explained it distinctly, but my question will be to Nancy. Nancy, do you know what our procedures are for renaming? It's a park, right, Mike?
Correct, yeah.
Renaming our Parks and Rec properties. Do you know anything about that, Nancy?
I'm not sure of the procedures for that. We can look into that and then report back to the committee.
Great. Okay, we'll do a vote on it first, just so it's official. All those in favor? We have a further question from Mark.
I think this could I just comment on this?
Yeah.
I think we should receive this for information, okay, and ask staff to look into that just so we know the procedure for that, and then bring that back next month. Because and I'm not against it. I just think that we ran into some issues with this recently with the renaming of the St. George Arena, and it went a little bit faster than it should have. And there'll be other people that we'll want to sort of touch base with. So
sure. Yeah, that's a fair
if we could do that, that'd be appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair comment, John. Thank you for that. And yeah, let's do that, Nancy, if that's okay. If you could maybe come back at a future meeting, maybe even next meeting, to let us know what the process is, then we can initiate a motion, second, or vote for it, the whole thing. Does that work for you, Mike?
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks for raising those. Thank you, John. Thanks for raising those 2 points, Mike. I've got two last things to try and touch base. We will be out of here before 5 o'clock, I promise. And two things related to heritage happened in the last 3 or 4 months that if we were having heritage meetings, we would have talked about them. And we weren't having meetings, so I wanted to talk about them now. The first is there is a farm on the east side of Paris at 853 Governors Road East. It is, I understand it was the farm of Augustus Jones, initiated in 1830. There was, I believe, an indigenous settlement there or nearby. And I believe the barn that was featured on our County of Brant heritage poster about barns. The barn was significant because it was an indigenous school at one point. And I remember a few years ago, Ron Eddy sitting when he was mayor and on our heritage committee. I remember him discussing it. He used to say he drives by it every day on his way home. And sadly, I'm here to report that a couple of months ago, that barn was bulldozed. It was raised to me by a passionate heritage member of our community as a concern and as kind of a, how does this happen? I contacted our building department, our planning department, and I said, how does this happen? How come our heritage committee didn't have an opportunity to comment on this? And the response that I got was that the Ontario Building Code stipulates that barns on agricultural properties do not require a building permit or a demolition permit specifically. that's lesson learned. So I think my point in bringing it up, aside from everybody on this committee needs to know about it, my point in bringing it up is this is a reminder of how important it is for us to understand the difference between registry and designation, and to as we move forward to really fully understand kind of what the rules are. And certainly in my opinion, if a structure is significant enough to be featured on one of our heritage posters, it's worth a conversation about designation. So that's just an FYI for the group. Any comments or questions about that? Aside from just general frustration, Dan?
So can the policy be changed on the demolition permit to say any structure?
Yeah, why not?
I am happy to see Pam is still lingering in the background of our meeting. As if she's there, I will ask Pam to jump in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Howes, and hello, committee. I think that's an excellent question. I don't know the answer, and I think that it reckons some discussion between probably Kayla and Brandon as your staff liaisons, and I would suggest that they could report back to you maybe at the next meeting on next steps.
Great, thank you. So Nancy, if you could note for that to be on the agenda for next meeting, I think that's something that we can't lose track of, and we appreciate. We appreciate the fact that there's been some changes in our staff and our planning and in building departments, and we really appreciate the attention of our current team on these matters of significance. So, any other comments on that one? Then I have one more bit of news. Oh, sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Sorry, another piece would be the educational piece of that. Maybe the owner wouldn't have got a demolition permit, or maybe they wouldn't have thought that it was significant at all, that maybe we should have something that educates the public on barns themselves.
Well, yeah, and you raise a good point. And if some of you will remember 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, and I was really pushing for us to have heritage walking tours and plaques and things like this around our county, and I'm still pushing for that. And this is, the person who owns that property, we have no idea whether they even know that 100 years ago, Indigenous children attended school in that barn. We don't even know if they know. And certainly there's no plaque on the barn. It just looked like a barn that was half going to fall down. So these are all. This is just a good example of the kinds of things that need our attention, policy wise, as we go forward and as we advise council, which is our job.
And we just talked earlier about being registered on the deed, the heritage. Sorry, it'd be registered on the deed so that when they came to buy the property, they'd be informed by their lawyer that there is heritage significance to the barn or to the house.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I don't even know, it's been a while since any of us perused through that very thick draft registry that Carol had worked on. But I don't even know if that property was on it. Right. So these are all things we have to be conscious of and look at as we move forward. And to me, it underscores the importance of having an active heritage advisory committee and folks like you who are on it. So I'll move on to my last point that I was going to bring in another business. This one's a little more positive. Back in November or December, the owner of the Capron Homestead in Paris at 8 Homestead Road, Mr. Miss, I believe was his name. He invited me to come in and have a look around. And he had done the same thing with Councillor McAlpine a year or two previous. I walked through this place it was absolutely incredible. I've got pictures that I can maybe show, or I'm hoping that won't even be necessary. Hopefully we can get him in to do it himself. But you walk through this place and it's like walking through the Bell Homestead. It's like walking through a museum. There isn't a cell phone cord charger. There isn't a DVD player. There isn't a stack of popular mechanics magazines. This is like stepping back in time. And he had some questions just about the future of that property. And at the time I sent some pictures and I wrote an email and I sent it to some of our key staff. And my hope, and my point in bringing it all up, is my hope is that we can invite him in to one of our upcoming Heritage Advisory Committee meetings, preferably in person. He has hearing limitations. He doesn't enjoy phone calls. He prefers speaking face to face. I don't think he would enjoy a Zoom meeting. But if one way or the other, I'd like to get him in to show us pictures and discuss opportunities for protection of that property. I know that Kayla Teachman has spent a little bit of time doing some research on this. So this is food for thought. John, you had a comment or question?
Well, I was just going to throw in there that he's actually invited us to go visit the home so that when we open up again, we can actually go there if the committee would like to do that for a trip. It'll be well worth it. Yep, field trip.
Excuse me.
So.
I would, and that's a great idea. And one way or another, we want to make a connection with him and have some dialogue with him about the future of that property. I think he's genuinely concerned that someone may come along and give him an offer he can't refuse someday. And he's got some family history tied to the building, and I won't go into all that right now, but either we will try to get him in to see us, or we will try to arrange for us to go see him as is appropriate and as our world opens back up. So I'm just going to leave that with you as something we want to have on the agenda for the future. I will reconnect with him and see, and we will watch over the next few weeks just kind of how open our worlds become. So aside from that, I don't see anything else on our agenda. We did wrap up. It is before 5 o'clock. Any last comments or questions? Dan?
So after losing a few members, are we looking for more members?
Thanks, Dan. I asked the same question for Nancy as soon as I wasn't aware of those resignations until when this agenda. And the answer I got from Nancy, and Nancy can correct me if I'm misspeaking, but the appointments basically go along with term of council, and we need a minimum number. We have the minimum number to continue. So we're not necessarily in a position to say we lost 4, so we got to recruit 4. It will be more along the lines of next fall, when we establish a new council, we will start looking at how we establish the next term of the Heritage Advisory Committee with more participants. Is that correct enough, Nancy?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
The Heritage Act, we need 5 members, and we surpassed that. So.
Gotcha. Okay, so nobody else leave or get sick or any. We need.
Meeting times is also a thing for me. If anytime before that 3:30 period, I'm iffy, so I might not be able to make every meeting as well. So.
Okay, if our meetings were at 4 o'clock, is that better?
That would be ideal for me.
Me too.
Anyone else have objections to 4 o'clock meetings in the future?
Sounds good.
And in the future, we won't be requiring 15 members of staff to participate. We'll narrow that down a little bit. And but yeah, we are done by 5 o'clock. We would ideally be done by 6 o'clock with a 4 o'clock start. So yeah, let's do that moving forward, Nancy. if we don't need a motion or anything for that, do we? Just a note?
No.
Okay. All right. And the last thing I wanted to say is again, we're sorry to see the folks who have left. We appreciate the folks who are still here. It is a little bit like Heritage Advisory Committee 2.0. We are moving forward. I believe we are moving forward with a significant amount of attention on the subject of heritage from our county staff. And that, combined with the voices from the people on this committee, I'm confident that we are going to be able to make a difference, that our time is going to be well spent. And I look forward to what we're able to achieve in cooperation with the great staff that are attending to this. So with that said, we'll have a move to adjourn from anybody, and we'll see you next month. We'll see most of you next week. Move to adjourn by Amanda, I think, sure, and seconded by Dan. And we'll see most of you Wednesday, 4 o'clock at the 2 Beverly Street East, St. George. Okay. Thank you for your